that listening to DeSantis talk about that strikes me as we're going to be seeing that will be a big point of discussion this session, I suspect. Real quick, a couple of other things. Ron DeSantis came out in support of banning fluoride in water. It sounds like he called it forced medication. We had a piece just recently on the newsletter where we said this is in many ways going to be the stupidest legislative session ever. That's another marker in that column, I suspect. More seriously, the legislature on day one started to move a pretty significant environmental bill for the Mosaic Company. That's the Fortune 500 phosphate mining and fertilizer manufacturing giant. We wrote a lengthy story about this issue on the newsletter last week. I think I'll throw a link to it in the show notes. But basically, the bill would insulate Mosaic from lawsuits over formerly mined land. And so, again, I won't go into too much detail, but the process of phosphate mining involves essentially you're strip mining phosphate ore out of the ground, and there's some naturally occurring radioactive materials in that. But the mining process, and then you have to reclaim the land once you're done with it. You put it back in kind of like they say it's better than the same state. It's like a facsimile of its former state. But the process can also leave the land, make the land more radioactive at the surface, leave higher radioactivity levels at the surface, because you've basically taken radioactive materials that were buried like 30 to 50 feet below ground. And then when you reclaim the land, you leave it buried much closer to the surface. There's a lot of dispute over just how much that increases radioactivity and whether or not it increases radioactivity to the point where it's unsafe to use the land for other things. The committee took it up and moved it through its first committee stop. And, in the Florida legislature, if you don't know anything else about it, to just know that the first committee hearing for any bill, that's the most important thing. That's the most important moment for any piece of legislation other than, the final vote and actually passing. So the fact that that bill is now in play and put in play on day one of the legislative session, probably a pretty good sign that it's got juice, as they say. Ron DeSantis has made this one of his biggest issues, so he'll be out there. He's got an even crazier proposal that essentially would allow him to personally write the ballot language. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but honestly, not all that much. It'd give him all these powers to just personally interfere and stop ballot measures that he doesn't like, much in the way we saw him try to do with the abortion and weed measures, where he spent, $20+ million of taxpayer money on ads against them.